here's Robin Ramsay. He's, as I said earlier, he's been for many, many years studying these issues. Extremely conscientious guy. He never goes an inch beyond the evidence. Sometimes he finds that some of us go too far and will say so. He's a very straight, honest guy, and he deserves a lot more than just having been editor of Lobster magazine. But, you know, there's no money in this sort of stuff. So here he is.
I don't know how to respond to an introduction like that. I actually thought I was speaking on a session on why don't the media do their jobs. Well, I'll start with that. Maybe I got an early version of the programme.
No, you're on that session as well, Rob. This is the general session.
My fault. Delete that. Let me respond to some of the things that Tony Godwin said about Bilderberg and the Illuminati. My way of thinking is pretty simple. There is no evidence at all, not a shred, that the Illuminati ever existed. If anybody's got any evidence that they existed, I haven't seen it, and I've looked. There isn't any. The idea that in the late 18th century secret society still has some influence in the world is a delusion on an enormous scale. We should just forget the Illuminati. If anybody mentions the Illuminati, just throw them out the window. That means they're not worth taking seriously, in my view. Ditto Masons. I know a Freemason. I live in Hull in Yorkshire. I knew a Freemason years ago, and he kept trying to get me to join because they had no members. Nobody wanted to join the Masons. It was old-fashioned. They ended up letting the women in, for God's sake. And it used to be men only. They had to let the wives in because they couldn't get members. The Freemasons are not an issue, except maybe in the police service and maybe in odd local government bodies. P2 in Italy had nothing to do with Freemasons. It was simply a political network. But, you know, so please, life is complicated enough, let's not piss about with rubbish like the Freemasons and the Illuminati. You know, we don't need to do with that. The guys, mostly guys in those big shiny buildings that I walk through today are not interested in secret societies and Illuminati. They're interested in making money. They don't care about power, they're interested in making money. That's all they're interested in. Those buildings down there are not about anything else. There's nothing subtle going on. Those big skyscrapers are not subtle objects. They're about power, they're about money. That's all there is to it. Now, the financial crisis, we could be here for the rest of the week talking about the financial crisis. My view would be something like this. It's much less organized than it looks. It's basically a shambles. And hardly anybody knows now what's going on. When it was all going wrong in 2007-8, hardly anybody then knew what was going on. The central fact about the financial crisis is the big cheeses in the top floor, the chief executives and their boards, had no idea what they were doing downstairs. They never took any interest in what little guys were doing downstairs. They had no idea that the little guys downstairs were gambling 10, 50, $100 billion a morning. And they still are, of course. None of this was all news to them, so when it all went wrong, they didn't know. When the House of Commons dragged Fred Goodman and the rest of those dickheads from Lloyds and RBS to their committee and said what was going on, they couldn't answer because they didn't bloody know. They really had no idea. Now, of course, they didn't care. They were getting rich, the bonuses were enormous, and essentially all that happened in 2007-8 was what happened with Nick Leeson. Nick Leeson was making a fortune for Barings, and the people at head office had no idea what he's doing. If he explained it to them, they wouldn't have understood it, and they didn't care. They were just happy to make money. Now, the key thing with it in let's go back to 2007 and 8 since I'm on the subject. What happened essentially was why it collapsed was a company called the American Insurance Group, AIG. They sponsor Manchester United. They're on the Man U shirts, AIG. They were in London. As Martin said, everybody moved to London because London was less regulated than America, so all the shady stuff came to London. AIG were guaranteeing, they were issuing insurance, they were taking small premiums and they were guaranteeing all these dodgy mortgages in America. Hundreds of billions of dollars worth of dodgy mortgages were insured for very, very, very tiny premiums, 0.1% of the total value. And some clever people began seeing that this was going on and began taking out all this insurance, began buying all these totally useless mortgages and insuring them with the AIG, knowing they were going to collapse. It was a deliberate policy by a bunch of smart people to bring it all down because they would get rich. There's a very good book called The Big Short by Martin Lewis. Read The Big Short, it's all in it. Now, AIG in London were making all these insurance policies, and they were supposed to be offsetting their own risk with other people, spreading the risk. They simply didn't bother spreading the risk, because if they spread the risk, they wouldn't have made any money. And the boss of AIG made £80 million one year, and he made £80 million by simply not doing what he should have done, which was spread the risks. And AIG brought it all down in the end, and AIG brought it all down because their boss decided to put it in his own pocket and not do the offsetting of the bets. The example of how things go wrong. The other thing I would briefly say here at this point, this in the afternoon, we've got a problem in this society of the politicians don't know what they're doing. We've got a problem in this society that the political class, such as it is, don't understand economics. To be a politician in this society, you don't have to understand economics. Trust me, David Cameron knows nothing about economics. George Osborne knows nothing about economics. They're just people at the end of memo chains, and the memos are written by, and that's where the issue is, who writes the memos. Gordon Brown knew nothing about economics. Gal Shadali, read his memoir, I've read his memoir. He knew nothing about economics. They're just bureaucrats that write memos written by other people. And until our political class gets to understand what it is they're pissing about with, this is all going to go on happening again. And the other second thing is the politicians have to be persuaded that they have the power. They make the rules. People think, oh, the power's in the city. Look at this. Look at the size of the Gherkin. Look at the size of these buildings. This is where the money is. No, the power is in the House of Commons. The House of Commons make the rules. They set the rules. The politicians want to avoid this issue because they don't want to be responsible for it because it looks too frightening. So they say, oh no, it's nothing. It's the market. We can't do anything. It's nothing to do with us. We just. And this is nonsense. Somehow we have to persuade people who want to go into politics that yes, you're in charge. You make the rules. And of course, if you make the rules unpleasant, they'll all leave. Personally, if they all left tomorrow, I'd be thrilled. In 1997, I remember having a conversation, no, 1992, when Labour lost the election, I was having a conversation with Peter Crampton, who was an MEP at that point. And he said, what should Labour do? I said, well, if Labour wins, they should appoint a minister for saying goodbye to bankers, because they'll all leave. You would park him or her at Heathrow, and he could shake their hands as they got on the plane. Now, mind you, that's what needs to happen. They all have to go away. All of that activity is ridiculous at best. It's ridiculous, it's anti-human, it's doing nothing but harm to the rest of the world. Those buildings have to be emptied. All the inhabitants have to go away and the lights switched off, and this great, vast fucking canyon of nonsense has to stop. Now, the problem is, there is nobody in the Labour Party at the moment, and that's the only one you've got. The Tories won't do it, the Liberals won't do it, the Greens aren't big enough to get anywhere near doing it. We're stuck with the Labour Party again. There is nobody coming up in the Labour Party who's even thinking about this. They're now all thinking about their careers. We have now got an entirely careerist Labour Party. The Labour movement, as it was in my day in the 80s and 90s, has disappeared. So we've got a big black hole. How do we recreate the Labour movement? I don't know how we do this, but that is a central issue. We have to recreate a Labour movement and get politicians who understand economics. At that point, something might happen. Short of that, we're in the shit.